Okay, so here we're on slide 29. Here's the actual transduction event, the conversion of some kind of stimulus energy into an action potential. Well, first into a receptor potential, and then into an action potential. So here is the hair cell with the stereocilia stuck in the tectorial membrane, and they're linked together. And when a wave moves the basal membrane that the hair cells are on, the basal membrane, this moves the cell, and the stereocilia don't go anywhere. They're stuck in the tectorial membrane, so they stay, and they actually um, cause a bending of the membrane, a distortion of the membrane. This opens up potassium ion channels, and potassium enters the cell and depolarizes it. Now, after going through this should raise a real question for you. This goes against everything we learned in the nerve tissue chapter. What happens when you open up potassium ion channels? Potassium always leaves cells. It never comes in because it's always more concentrated inside than out. Except here, this is totally bizarre. It goes against everything we've learned because the endolymph is a high potassium solution. So potassium is actually more concentrated on the outside of these hair cells than it is on the inside. And so so when you open up an iron potassium channel, potassium comes in and depolarizes the membrane. It's totally bizarre. Okay, so slide 30, it just shows you how the waves enter and how they leave. They enter and they have to leave. So the extreme ultrameatus here, the waves come in here, move the tympanic membrane, move the ossicles, uh, causes amplification of those waves in the perilymph in the scala vestibuli, and it travels on the scala vestibuli. And we're going to find out that depending on the frequency, it will it's going to move this vestibular membrane, and it's going to move a particular part of the basal membrane, and then it's going to cause waves in the endolymph, which is going to move the basal membrane, which distorts the cells and causes receptor potential. Now these waves have to leave this way through the scala tympani, through the parallel scala tympani, through what's called a round window. So waves come in at the oval window and they leave at the round window. And actually, the scala vestibuli and scala tympani are all really part of the same chamber. As you can see, this blue around here comes all the way around, and they meet at the helicotrema, and then they go out to the round window. So it's oval window to round window. Okay, slide 31, sensory coding. Loudness. How much? How much are the stereocilia bent or not really bent? How much distortion of the membrane is caused? A lot of distortion, loud sounds. Small distortion, small sound. Pitch. The basal membrane is frequency coded. Um, High frequencies need a proximal end, low sound frequencies need a distal end. And that's how your brain distinguishes is pitch because of what part of the basal membrane vibrates. And down sound focusing. You've noticed this a little bit. You can focus your hearing. That if you come into a room, say, and you hear somebody particularly speaking that you've heard before, you want to hear it, you can dampen the other sounds in the room just a little bit, and that is actually efferent information leaving your brain to dampen the parts of the basal membrane that you want to dampen. So slide 32 shows you again how the basal membrane is frequency coded. High frequency sounds vibrate that part of the basal membrane. Medium frequency sounds, low frequency sounds. And then there's directionality of sound. Uh, how do you know where sound is coming from? Uh, well, what side of the head gets the wave first? And I think the speed of sound is 760 miles per hour. But and so, how long does it take for that sound wave to go from your right ear to your left ear if the sound's coming from your right? Like a fraction of a millisecond. But that's still enough to let your brain know what direction that sound's coming from. The problem is if the sound is directly ahead of you, directly overhead of you, or directly behind you, you won't be able to tell where it's coming from. You have to turn your head to find out in that case because it's hitting both ears at the same time.